So if you're in the market to buy right now, it probably feels like one of those crazy movies, where the auctioneer starts the bidding process off at $1,000 and someone screams 2,000 and someone screams 3,000. And then all of a sudden there's this obnoxious person that screams $10,000. And that's what the real estate market is like right now. These listing prices are just the initial offer price. And we're seeing people, because of fear or because of desperation, really outbid each other to get a property. And we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars, depending on what marketplace you're in. I did a little bit of research over the weekend to figure out, how much it's really taking for people to buy a home. And the median, meaning that like half of the people will pay more than this and half of the people will pay less than this, is around 2% for a national market, and then 15,000 here in Phoenix. And so that means that people are paying literally, if you're buying a $400,000 house, you're paying $8,000 in some markets over the list price, guaranteeing an appraisal gap. And then in Arizona, that's like whatever the list price is, which right now is at $370, and you're paying, $15,000 over that, even if it doesn't appraise. So I want to talk about strategies, right, with how to do that, right? Where do you come up with this extra money? And, if you're a watcher of this channel, you know that I personally believe that the market isn't going to loosen up anytime soon. We have a very, very strong constriction on supply, which just means that even if we lost like more than half of our buyer demand, we still wouldn't have enough houses available for sale. So we'll get into that and then the strategies and more in this video. But before we do, I am going to ask you to like, comment, and subscribe so that you never miss a money tip or mortgage video in your future. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Lizzie Hofer. I've worked in residential mortgages now since 2002. This is my second housing crisis. I began as a loan officer literally in the bust. So I can tell you that I've seen a lot of different markets. And even though I worked in that last crash, I can tell you that there's fundamental differences between now and then. And they primarily have to do with supply and the number of homes that are coming on the market. So one key difference is that supply is not rising. Like from 2005 to 2006, there was almost a 30,000 increase in supply here in Phoenix, right? Which is one of the most distressed markets in the nation, right? That is not happening. It took a long time to burn through that demand, right? So we didn't start talking about a housing crash really until the end of 2007, 2008, and then 2009. But I mean, the market really started shifting during the boom. If you look at where inventory is today, you will see that it has been declining literally since 2014. And we started slowly creeping up, but we're talking about hundreds of homes versus thousands of homes. And there isn't, quite frankly, enough homes even built to withstand population, okay? So I think that for the foreseeable future, we have bidding wars, rising home prices, and people guaranteeing money over appraised values, right? So it is just a seller's market. It just is what it is when, you have too many people who are interested in buying homes and not enough houses. Now, there are a lot of people talking about the number of forbearances, rising interest rates, affordability. And while all of those things are really important, right? We don't want massive numbers of people foreclosing. It's really unlikely given the amount of equity. And then two, the median income is actually rising with the rising home prices, and it's actually, believe it or not, 3% more affordable, right? Like literally it goes from like 31% to 28% in affordability between that market and this market. And so if incomes continue to rise with home values, I think we're going to be okay. And then even if we did lose some buyers, and I hate to say this, from people not being able to qualify or home prices just getting too expensive, again, like I said, even if we lost a large percentage of that demand, there still isn't enough homes, right? There still isn't enough homes. So the advice I'm giving you right now is just the most solid advice for the data that I'm seeing. And I just want to teach you what it takes to win. Okay, so what are your options, right? Well, I've got 5 solutions for you. Some are not that sexy. Some are like, creative. Right? But most of them do involve some kind of sacrifice on your end, okay? So first is savings, right? I preach on living on 70% of your net take-home income. It gives you about 10 to 30% of funds available to be able to save for this if you don't have a bunch of debt that you're trying to pay down and you already have a rainy day fund. It's going to take you anywhere between 1 to 3 years to save up money for a down payment and any overage, and you are going to want to have to calculate for inflation and market conditions, so you will have to talk to a real estate agent and a loan officer to figure out what those projections are. The second tip I'm going to tell you is you can actually get gifts from family members. Now, the IRS has a limitation of $15,000 on the amount that one person can gift another person, but in home loans, you are allowed to gift as much money as needed, so long as it comes from a qualified family member, which is like grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, right? Step siblings and parents count, cousins don't. Personal family friends are really, really difficult to document and only available for certain loan products. So generally, you're going to want to stick to the first category of people. We have to make sure that, one, as a lender, that there is no repayment required. We typically have to verify a 30-day bank statement showing that they had the funds, and then we have to verify the transfer of those funds from their account into your closing account. So, I mean, there are a couple steps involved, and it's uncomfortable sometimes to ask family, but if you have a family member that's willing to help you, I know lots of people are foregoing weddings right now and big vacations, and so this might be another option, right, for family members that, have the funds, and we're gonna give you some kind of monetary contribution for something else, okay? Now, third option, guys, is borrowing from your 401k or borrowing from an IRA. Right? So I don't typically like the concept of borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. But the thing is that sometimes it's difficult to come up with savings fast enough to be able to keep up with the marketplace. And like I said, I do believe that this is real estate is the type of investment where typically your cash outlay for down payment, overage, closing costs, you typically see 100% return on. And so if you're going to borrow from yourself to be able to purchase something like real estate, I do sometimes think it makes sense. Now, if you're in heavy debt and this is your only savings plan, I'm going to say absolutely not, right? Because this is the rainy day fund, right? So if you don't have another rainy day fund, if you are in debt, if you aren't able to live in that 70%, I don't like this option at all. But things that you need to know. One, you're going to have to check with your program administrator. One, because there's restrictions on the amounts that you're able to borrow. There's restrictions on, if they still allow you to invest the funds. And just in general, if they allow for loans or for hardships, or if they allow for both, right? So you're going to want to check like what's actually available to you. Now, my favorite option is actually to do a loan. One, because it pays you back in interest. And a lot of programs still keep the funds invested for you. So it's kind of like you're getting interest and returns. Now, the penalty with a loan, though, is that it is going to take away from your actual net take-home income, because the repayments come straight out of your paycheck. And so depending on the repayment term, which again is controlled by your administrator, I mean, this can be significant and you definitely want to account for it. Now, we don't account for it as a debt in your debt to income ratio because it's a loan to yourself, but it will impact your actual net take-home income. And I think anything that does that has to be accounted for, okay? So there's just that. Other cons are sometimes they only offer a withdrawal, and a withdrawal will be taxed. That stinks. And you lose the benefit of investing in your retirement, right? So those are things that you definitely want to consider, but I do think that it's a good option for you to get funds that would be difficult to save, right? And if budget's not your issue, if it's just savings that's your issue, then I say that this is a good option, okay? Now, my final suggestion for you for how to get the additional funds is to figure out ways and to talk to a qualified loan professional that's going to be really strategic with how we structure your loan. So there are a lot of people who buy with minimum down. I think it's over 70%, and they're buying with anywhere between 3 and 5%. If you're a first-time home buyer and you're not a veteran and you're not buying in a rural area, your minimum down payment is typically around 3% if you're getting conventional loan limits and not a jumbo. And then it goes up to 5 for minimum down, right? So it's 3 to 5, but even in that 3 to 5%, if let's say you were putting down 5, look at the option for, 3%, 3.5%. What does that look like? So that way you can, again, have additional funds to secure for overage. If you're going to do 10%, 20%, 15%, anything over 5, you also want to look into, instead of doing that, what the options are for buying out mortgage insurance, right? So mortgage insurance buyouts can actually make your payments lower, right, than you would have initially had, or keep them relatively the same, with giving you that same additional cash that you'd be able to pay in overage for an appraisal gap or for bidding over ask, right? So just something to think about. Also another strategic thing, right? So this is technically number 5, is figuring out ways to look at different rate options. So I know no one wants to pay a higher interest rate for 30 years. That's not really the plan, but interest rates are historically low. And if budget's not really your issue, it's really money. Look at different options for bumping up your interest rate so that the lender can give you back a credit towards closing costs, right? So lenders and agents are able to help with closing costs, right? So long as it does not exceed the actual cost for your home loan. So this might be another option for you to look at, which gives you more flexibility, more funds available to, again, make up some of that difference, right? Make you a more competitive buyer. So these are just some of the best strategies that I have thought of. I'd love to answer your questions on this. I think this would make a really great live. We do lives every single Wednesday now at 5 p.m. So definitely tune in for that, and hit me up with anything you want to know. All right, until next time, guys, see you on another Mortgage Money Lizzie video.